The strange yam bled like a wounded animal the moment Izzy's knife touched it. He had cut yams all his life, thick white flesh, dry starch, harmless sap, but this was different. A thin red line crept out from the cut, then another, until warm, fresh blood dripped onto the wooden kitchen table. Izzy froze, his breath locked in his chest, the knife slipping from his fingers and clattering to the floor. For a long moment, he only stared, his eyes wide, his heart pounding so loud he thought the whole compound could hear it. The yam twitched slightly, just once, like something alive reacting to pain. With a shaky hand, Izzy stepped back. "This is not ordinary," he whispered to himself, fear crawling under his skin like ants. Earlier that day, nothing had seemed unusual. The market had been noisy as always, women shouting prices, goats bleating, bells clanging, and the smell of fresh palm oil hanging thick in the air. Izzy had gone there with one simple plan: buy yams for his family's evening meal. He noticed the seller almost immediately because the man stood apart from the others. His store was small, neat, and strangely quiet. Before him lay only 3 yams, all smooth, clean, and unusually large. Izzy had asked for the price, surprised when the man named an amount far lower than the market rate. Suspicion flickered in his mind, but cheap food was hard to resist. Without much bargaining, he bought 1 yam and dropped it into his bag. As Izzy turned to leave, he glanced back to thank the seller, but the man was already looking away, his face half hidden beneath a dark cap. Now that same yam sat on his kitchen table, bleeding as though it had a heart. Fear gave way to confusion, and confusion slowly morphed into dread. Izzy forced himself to act. He wrapped the yam in an old cloth and ran out to the compound calling for his wife. She screamed when he unwrapped it and saw the blood. Neighbors gathered within minutes, drawn by the noise and the whispers spreading like wildfire. Everyone saw it, the living proof, the impossible sight of a yam that bled like a human being. One brave man nudged it with a stick. Another suggested cutting it again to be sure it wasn't some trick. Izzy, trembling but desperate for answers, lifted the knife once more and sliced a thin edge. Fresh blood spilled out immediately, brighter and warmer than before. The crowd burst into shouts and prayers. Some people ran, others covered their faces. An old woman fainted on the spot. By evening, the house was full of rumors, fear, and heated arguments. Some said it was juju, others said it was the work of a powerful herbalist angered by the village. A few whispered that it was punishment from the spirit. Izzy said nothing. His mind was fixed on one thing: the strange seller. At first light the next morning, he hurried back to the market, his heart heavy with a strange mix of fear and determination. He searched every corner, every familiar stall, asking questions. "Did you see a man selling big yams yesterday?" he asked again and again. The traders shook their heads. Some said no such man had been there. Others claimed the space where Izzy described was empty all day. Confused and frightened, Izzy pressed on, moving from one end of the market to the other under the hot sun. By noon, it was clear. The seller had vanished without a trace, like smoke in the wind. As Izzy returned home defeated, another whisper swept through the village, this time darker than the rest. A young girl was missing. She had left for school the previous day and never returned. Her mother's wailing echoed through the compound, sharper than enough to break the hardest heart. The village gathered in uneasy silence as search parties were formed. As the sun dipped low and torches were lit, one girl stood trembling before the elders, her face wet with tears and guilt. With a broken voice, she confessed. She and her missing friend had been walking back from school the other day when they saw money lying on the road. They had laughed, excited by their sudden luck. Her friend bent down to pick it, and in that same instant, before her eyes, she changed into a yam. Not a dream, not an illusion. A real yam fell to the ground where her friend had stood. Before she could scream for help, a strange man appeared, picked up the yam, and disappeared into the bush. The truth fell like thunder over the silent crowd, and in that moment, everyone understood what the strange yam truly was.
The confession spread through the village like fire in dry grass, and by the time the search party returned at night, everyone already knew the truth behind the strange yam. Izzy sat on the floor of his hut staring at the cloth-wrapped bundle before him, his hands trembling as the girl's words echoed in his head. A human soul trapped in the form of food, a child sold like produce in the market. Outside, torches flickered as angry voices rose and fell. Parents held their children close, elders whispered among themselves. When Izzy finally unwrapped the yam again, fresh blood had sucked through the cloth, dark and sticky. It was as if the trapped girl was still alive inside, begging silently for help. Izzy's wife wept openly now, beating her chest in grief. "We cooked someone's child," she cried. "We almost ate someone's daughter." The weight of it pressed on the whole household like a curse. The next morning, the elders gathered at the village square. The missing girl's parents sat in front, broken and hollow-eyed, while the confessed friend knelt on the ground, shaking with fear and sorrow. She repeated her story again, every word steady as pain ripped through her voice. She described the money on the road, bright and freshly folded. She described the strange heaviness that filled the air when her friend bent to pick it. She described how her friend's body twisted and shrank in seconds, bones folding into flesh, skin hardening into the brown skin of a yam. Some villagers gasped again, as if hearing it for the first time. Others simply shook their heads, already convinced that dark powers were at work. The elders listened in deep silence until the girl had finished speaking. Then one of them rose slowly, leaning heavily on his staff. "This is not the first time such evil has passed through our land," he said in a quiet, heavy voice. "But it may be the last if we choose wisdom over greed." They decided the strange yam must be brought before the shrine for proper judgment. Eze volunteered to carry it, his face stiff with fear and guilt. As they walked through the village in a slow, sorrowful procession, women cried openly, men murmured prayers, and children watched in terrified silence. At the shrine, the chief priest examined the bleeding yam without touching it, his eyes sharp with spiritual caution. He ordered a ritual immediately. Incantations filled the air mixed with the smell of burning herbs and the low chants of ancestral names. The priest demanded that if a human spirit was truly trapped inside, it should respond to the call of life. As the final words were spoken, the yam jerked violently, splitting down the middle without any knife touching it. Blood rushed out in a sudden flood, soaking the earth. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, a weak cry rose from the ground. Before the stunned eyes of the gathered villagers, the broken yam slowly reshaped itself into the body of the missing girl, naked, shaking, and covered in blood, but alive. Her mother's scream turned into a cry of joy as she rushed forward and grabbed her child in a desperate embrace. The village erupted in shock, praise, and fearful celebration all at once. Some people fell flat on the ground in thanksgiving. Others backed away, unable to believe what their eyes had seen. The girl, weak but breathing, was wrapped quickly in cloth and carried home amid tears and praises. But joy soon gave way to anger. The elders demanded the identity of the strange seller, yet no one could name him. The confessed girl insisted the man appeared suddenly from the bush and vanished the same way. Search parties scoured the nearby forest for days, but no trace of the seller was found. It was as if the earth itself had swallowed him. The elders finally declared that such a man was not ordinary, but a wandering servant of dark powers who fed on human greed. The village organized sacrifices of cleansing and protection, sealing crossroads, markets, and school routes with prayers and warnings. From that day onward, the story of this strange yam became a lesson carved into the memory of every child and adult in the village. Parents warned their children every morning before school, Do not pick what you did not lose. Do not take money from the road. Teachers repeated it in classrooms. Elders told it at night by the fireside. The girl who had been turned into a yam grew up under the shadow of that terrible miracle, alive but forever changed by what she had endured. Eze never returned to the market without remembering the blood that flowed from a harmless-looking yam. And so the village learned, through fear and mercy, that not every gift is a blessing, not every opportunity is safe, and not all money brings fortune. Some carry curses dressed as luck.